Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dear viewers and listeners, I wish and welcome all of you with the Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. May peace, blessings, and mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the God Almighty, be upon all of you. Today, in our webinar, we are going to discuss one of the important issues and important topics, which is, I think, very important for all the beginners in research, particularly those who are going to now start their research career. The topic is how to read a scientific paper effectively. Before this talk, I have already given a few talks regarding how to write the scientific research paper, how to avoid publishing in a predatory journal, what is a predatory journal, and how to improve the skills of writing. All those topics and all those videos are available on my YouTube channel, Dr. Khalid Hakim. You can go and you can watch all those lectures. In fact, why I'm telling all these things to you, the reason is that before writing a research paper, you should know how to read a scientific paper effectively, because for reading is actually giving you the comprehension of writing. So until and unless you read a research paper, you understand the process of reading, then you can easily write a research paper. So for any writer, the first suggestion for him is to read more and more things what he want to later on write himself. So in the process of research writing, the first thing is that you need to know what is a research paper and how this research paper need to be read. Many can ask me the question that this is a very simple process. We can take the research paper just like the newspaper and read it. But believe me, if you read the research paper, what are the points which I am discussing nowadays and today, you will find your reading process has been increased, as well as the comprehension in your reading, it will get much more effectiveness. So let us start our topic, how to read a scientific paper effectively. So we should know that the scientific papers are the heart of the scientific community. So how do you know that you are a real scientist or you are doing the science? So it depends upon how many research papers you have already written and how many research papers you are going to write. So that's why we can say in the scientific arena, the calculation of your scientific temperament, it is calculated on the basis of your research outputs, and those research outputs are usually coming out in the form of research papers. So it is an essential part to learn how to read a scientific paper quickly but insightfully. Otherwise, you may feel that you have not gained what you actually want. Sometimes you feel that you are not working. You always need someone to tell you how to write a research paper. So basically, this is a brain exercise. I'm giving today's lecture as a sort of a brain exercise, particularly for those who are coming to the scientific arena first time, or who are the beginners. They surely will understand the process and they will improve their skills of writing later on when they read how to read the research paper effectively. So before beginning, we should know that in principle, we have two types of scientific papers available, although we have many more, but in principle, we have two. One is we call them as the review articles, and second, we call them as the primary research articles. What is the difference? You should know that a review article is an article which is the collection of literature on a particular topic. And this review article gives an overview of the scientific field or the topic by summarizing the data and conclusions from many studies. For example, you want to write a review article on climate change and its impacts on India. For example, this is your topic. Now, in this review article, you can quote as number of as you can the relevant research papers on this issue, who have worked on Indian scenario on the different aspects of climate change. You can collect the literature of them. You can write them in your own words. You can quote the literature. You can quote the data. You can cite the information. And this is what we call as a review article. Okay. So in the review article, it's not necessary you will give your primary information, or you can give your own research inputs. It's not necessary. You can use the data from other people. We call that as the secondary data. And in that data, you can compile, you can compose, and you can interpret some equivalent and some important results. This is what we call as the review article. And mostly the journals, they like the research, they like these review articles come from some experts who are the expert in the subject. But it's not necessary only the experts can write the research article, a review article. In fact, the beginners can write, but they definitely need the guidance, the path, how to write it from the, what we can say, the supervisors or the seniors. Usually from my side, my students, I always encourage them to write the review article first before they come to the research arena and they come to know how to write the research paper, because this review article writing is actually giving them the comprehension of that particular topic and that particular area of research. Naturally, I'm helping them in finding the table of content and others, and I am also in the co-author in the same review papers, so it is getting easily published by some renowned journal. The second type of articles we have, we call it the primary research article. And primary research article, usually it contains the original data, your own data, the conclusive results, what we call as the conclusion, what the researchers have themselves got from their own research. They have done their own experiments. And they also mention in the primary research article how the experimentation was done. So we have usually now two types of articles. One is the review article, another is the research article or primary research article. So how to read those? We require some tactics. We require some, some strategies. Now let us take the thing first about the review article. What is basically the review article? Usually I told you, and whenever you want to read a review article, most of the journals, they write in the, in the one of the corners of their these review articles that this is a review. So they label these articles as review articles. So you need not to become worried which article is a review article, which is the research article. Most of the journals, when they publish the review articles, they mention at the upper corner of the particular article that this is a review article, so that you can easily understand, and this is a review article and this is mentioned in the first page of the article. So other point is that when you read a review article, you do not find the methodology or method section in that article, because method is missing. Because most of the cases, this review article is we are concluding the materials, and we are actually, what we can say, bringing the material from other primary research articles. So our data is secondary. So we have not used any method. In fact, we have collected the information from already written in the original research articles. So mostly you cannot find the methodology or method section in the review article. Also in the review articles, mostly you will find the graphs, you will find the tables, you will find the figures. And these tables and graphs and figures, they are not from your own data. Rather, this information is the collection of the multiple information found in the other originally written research articles. So most of the review articles you will find in their tables or in their figures, you will mention there are some citations, and they are quoting some originally reported findings from the primary research articles in their tables, figures, as well as other graphical illustrations. So this is how you can read a review article. It's a different form. It is just like a chapter. It is just like an information on a particular topic. And Reading a review article is very easy, and most of the cases when we suggest our newcomers in the science or our students, so we usually encourage them to read the review articles, because these review articles will give you a comprehension, because this is a collection of information of particular topic, and it's a wide information there, so that you will get lots and lots of points regarding your own research. So reading a review article is easier than reading a research article. Now let us move to the original research article. How you read an original research article. You should know that original research article, it is different from what we read in the books. So for the beginners, they should understand what is the difference between a research article and an article written in a book. See, in the book, we are mentioning the chapters, and those chapters have mostly, long age. We can say they are often years of old of ages. So the things written in the books, they are maybe 20 years old, 15 years old, 10 years old. But whenever you find an original research paper, when we say original research paper, it means it is the current information. It is the current information. You got the information very currently, very crispy information, and the information is very real. It is very original, and it is of nowhere it has been published previously. That's what we can say. Journal papers are very current, and they are different from what we can say the chapters written in the books. So journals generally they are the most accessible means of obtaining the information that you need, because since you are going to the research arena, and in order to understand the research arena very well, you have to write yourself the research articles. So you need to understand how these research articles have been written. For that, you have to read research articles more, because they will give you more insight. Similarly, when you read the research article, original research paper, you will get a good explanation for your data, because you need to understand how this data has been interpreted in the previously written article. And you will get enough details to replicate what you read about. Because in your research, you have to follow the same methodology. You have to follow the same, what we can say, hypothesis. You have to follow the same scientific methods. So in order to understand how they have written it, you can easily grab and you can easily grasp the things. Similarly, you can find out exactly what the latest developments are in a field. For example, if you are in a superconductor field, or you are in a biotechnology field, and your topic is nanotechnological application on agriculture. So when you read some papers, research papers regarding the same issues, you can yourself understand what type of methodology they have used, and how they have used, and how they have written their introduction, how they have interpreted their result, and how they have discussed their results. So that's why, to find out how a certain piece of research was done, it is very important to read the original research papers, because one day soon you could be writing the papers too. It is very important. When you read the paper, it becomes a sort of a tool for yourself. It becomes a pathway for yourself to learn how these research papers have been written. Now the question is that, and I asked the question previously also, why to learn how to read? So mostly the people will say this is just like reading a newspaper. Believe me, but this is not. So why to learn how to read? Number one, you will learn how to do research. As a beginner, you should know that how to do research, but how to do research, you need to read how to read a research paper, how the previous research paper has been carried out, how it has been written. So when you read it, you will easily get the information that how the research has to be taken out. Similarly, you will learn to think critically about the quality of research papers, because sometimes you feel I'm doing some research. I'm giving an example. In the morning, one student was calling me and he was telling that I have done this. And I told him the research he has carried out, it is very, very old, almost 10 years before we are doing that type of research. So until and unless you read what is actually going out in the world, you cannot get the idea, the actual idea that I have to do this thing and that. So in any discipline, there are fades. There are some short answers. There are long-lasting ideas. So you will learn these differences while you read the research paper, and also you will gain the perspective when you read the research paper. So it should be very much clear at this moment that reading a newspaper or reading a popular article just in the scientific magazine is completely different than reading a research paper. So reading a research paper, it is giving you an insight, it is giving you a perspective. You can learn how to do the research. It is also giving you the quality, you understand the quality, how this scientific methodology is actually doing up. So these are some of the points which we actually gain when we read the research papers effectively. Now, what about the typical anatomy of a paper? So when you see the review article, as I told you, review article is general. We have introduction, we have sections, and in the section we have subsections. It is easy to grasp, it is easy to grab the idea of a review article. But what about the research article? See, I told you that research article is, there is a setup for a research article. Almost every research article is following what we called as the conventional IMRD, IMRD. What is this? It means that every research article has a structure. So each part of this structure, there is a very important message in that. How to get this message? This is actually the today's talk. I am dealing you in some of the coming slides. The research article, a general research article is just like a fish. So in a fish, we have three parts. We have the face, we have the main body, and we have the tail. Similarly, each research paper has three parts. The face of the research paper includes the title. So you have the title of a research article. The title should not be long, it shouldn't be short. I have already given this information in my other talk, how to write a scientific paper effectively. Today's talk is how to read the scientific paper. So reading, you also need to understand the structure of a research paper. So structure includes the face, you will see the title, you will see the abstract. Abstract is a summary of the paper, and you will find some keywords. Then the main body of the research paper includes IMRAD. It includes the introduction, methods, results, and discussion. Sometimes results and discussions are written together, but mostly they are written separately. Result is separately, discussion is separately. And the final part is the conclusion, because a research paper may be of 20 pages, 25 pages, lengthy information. But what is the main conclusion? You can find in the tail, like the conclusion. And research article is also having this acknowledgement and references, because all the research articles are written in contacts with the previous research or discuss with the previous research. So we need to give the references, because everything need to be quoted. We call it the references. And sometimes some research paper has the supplementary data. Suppose some primary data is there, because research paper has a particular length, maybe of 20-25 pages. So the journals, they usually ask the authors if they have extra data or supporting data, they can put in the supplementary files. And these supplementary files are not available in the primary data, but it's a link there. If you want to check the supplementary data, you can click the link and you can go to the supplementary or additional data. Sometimes videos, sometimes audios, sometimes extra figures, sometimes primary data. So this is what actually we have the research paper set up. So each point in the research paper, there is a rule of thumb. So we have almost 6 parts in the research paper, and each part is giving us something. For example, title. You will see the research paper title, usually it is short, it is eye-catching. So suppose you will give some interesting title to a research paper. And when you write a research paper, you have to follow this rule, because first look of your research paper is the title of your research paper. So mostly you will see the research paper titles are eye-catchy, they are short, they are beautifully written, and they are some, unambiguous, because the language of research paper is simple. There is no complex English written in the research paper. This is not a Shakespearean novel. This is not something, some extraordinary research, what we can say literary work, because scientific paper is written in a very simple English so that anyone can understand it. After the title, we have the abstract. So in the abstract is a sort of a short summary of your whole research paper, and it is depending upon the abstract how it has been written. You can be interested to read a whole paper. So most of the scientists, they start reading the abstract before they read the whole paper, because they need to understand whether this paper is worth to read or not. So depending upon the abstract, and in the abstract we are mentioning why, and why means we are mentioning why this research has been carried out, what was the need of that research to be carried out, why, which method we have used, and why that method has been used, which things have been followed, and which conclusions were there, why we got those conclusions. So this is a summary. Mostly abstract is 250 to 300 words maximum. So you will not lose your time when you first of all read your abstract, because abstract is very, very important to read before you read the whole paper. Second is the introduction. After the abstract, we have the introduction. So introduction is a sort of you are introducing your topic. So you will find, and you have to always ask yourself the question while you read the paper: when, whom, why, what, and why. So before I go further, I will tell you, now you are reading a paper. It means you have to read it critically. Otherwise, if you read it just like a newspaper article, you cannot gain as much as things I'm expecting. So in order to expect and in order to gain things from the research paper, you need to be just like a questionnaire. You need to ask the questions, many questions. In the abstract, why and why. Introduction, when, whom, why, what, and why. Because all these questions will, whenever you start asking the question, so in order to get the answer for this question, you are gaining the things. You are getting it the interesting things. Similarly, material and method, you have to understand who, how, and where. So you need to understand how this method has been done, where this method has been carried out, where from the material has been brought, and where the method has been done. All these things you have to ask. And what about the results? You have to ask the questions, what results the research paper is giving you. And finally, the discussion, why and how. Discussion is always about why and how these things have been done. So this is a summary chart before you. When you go to read a research paper, you should be always starting with asking the questions. So in the title, whether it is eye-catching, whether it is short, abstract, why and why. Introduction, you have to ask many questions. In methodology, you have to ask the many questions. In the results also, you have to ask the question. And in discussion, you have to ask many questions. Now, this is an anatomy of a scientific paper. If you see, I have written here. So if you see the paper, research paper, you will find the title at the first page front. Mostly it is written in a different font, bigger font. Okay. After that, you will find the author information. Author information is usually below the title. You will find the information about the author. What is the name of the author? Also, where from the author is, means what is the affiliation of the author. For example, I am my name when I write it is Khalid Rahman Hakim. Okay. Then my affiliation will come Department of Biological Sciences, Faculty of Science, King Abdulaziz University, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Then we have a postal code. That's it. And if I'm the corresponding author, then I have to write my email ID. This is the set format with each and every research article. After that, you will find the abstract. And when you see the abstract, it's a summary of study findings written by the author. Then after that, you will find the introduction. Before this abstract, after this abstract, there will be some keywords. After the keywords, there will be introduction. And this introduction, as I told you, is a statement of what is currently known about the study. subject, and it will also cite the scholarly work which has been carried out. It will form a hypothesis. Hypothesis means you will get some, some question-based information. What you have, you have taken up for this present research, all the hypotheses will be discussed there, and what type of hypothesis has been tested. All this information will be in the introduction. After the introduction, you will find the result section. Sometimes you will find the material method section firstly, but I'm telling you, most of the journals, they start with the result section. In the result, you are giving the description of the research conducted and the results obtained. And all the results, they are presented in a tabulated form. Sometimes we have that large data set. Sometimes results are, explained in the form of figures. There are some graphics. There will be some videos, diagrams, and photographs. And some papers, they include the additional support data as a supplement, as I told you. So after the results, we will find the discussion. In the discussion, it is an analysis and interpretation of the data which was presented in this paper, and this data is integrated, and it is seen with the other research which has been carried out in the same domain by some other scientists, so that it is matching whether your research is matching with the others or not. If it is matching, okay. If it is not matching, you will give the reasons. Similarly, as I told you, methods. The method is a description of how the studies were conducted with sufficient details so that others can repeat the methodology or the whole experiment as such. And finally, you will see the reference. So this is how you will see the anatomy of a scientific research paper. And similarly, you have to read them, accordingly. First of all, you will see the title. Then you have to first of all read the abstract. Okay, so I will tell you one by one the points. How do you and what do you consider while you read the research paper? Now, this is basically what I told you in the previous slide, the same with an exact example of a research paper. So as you see, there is a case study, reading a primary research article from Plant Physiology. Okay, now this is a title. As you see, the title is written, the B gene of a P encodes a defective, flavonoid, this is the title. Then you will see that these titles sometimes indicates the footnotes. If there is some information, there will be the footnotes there. After that, you will find the author and author information there. As I told you, the author information is here. This is the author. And sometimes you will see the author, they have particular format. You have to write in the same format. So there may be one author or multi-authors, multiple authors. So likewise, in this paper, we have many authors. Each author is, separated by comma, just like here. Then this is the author information. So each author is having some, suppose 1, 2, 3, and each author is having their affiliation here. After that, we have an abstract, and you will see the abstract is here. It's a summary written by the authors, okay, about the research paper. Then you will see the introduction. So not all journals mark it with a subheading. Most of the cases you will see the introduction is a 3-4 paragraphs in a generalized format, just like from up to down. But some journals, they write this introduction in a section ways. For example, they write in first section, second section, third section, but most of the journals, they write the introduction directly. Then we might have the footnotes if it is required, and we have to give the citations. Okay, after the citations, you will find after this introduction, then I told you it will be the material and method section, and all the material method sections should be also citations. Then we have results, discussions, and finally the conclusion. So this is how you will find a research paper, the anatomy of a research paper. Now you need to strategize your move, how to read it effectively. So how to read it? There you have to have the 3 passes. The first pass is read it as such. Directly you can take a research paper, read it from the title until the end. We called it the first pass. So in the first pass, give you a generalized idea about the paper. So I suppose in the beginning, you should take the research paper as such. And if you are going to conduct a research or be a research student, you should have a habit at least reading research paper, one research paper daily. At least you should have a habit. Anytime you can take a research paper and you will read it. And for the reading, number one reading is that we call it first pass. Take the research paper, have a title, just read the abstract. After the abstract, introduction, then material methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. This is called as the first pass. So this first pass will not take you much time, not more than half an hour or 40 minutes. Then from that, you need to go for the second pass. In the second pass, you have to grasp the paper's content. Okay. Now you need to take a highlighter and just highlight the main contents. But in the second pass, you need not to go to details. Just highlight the main contents of the paper. And then you will follow we call it the third pass. In the third pass, it helps you understand the paper in depth. So it's not only you will take the paper, you will read it and you will grasp everything. No, actually it should have three passes. The first pass, get a generalized idea from the paper. So generalized idea, normally we will get it when you read the abstract. Then the second pass is you just mark the main content. Don't go the details of that content, mark the content. And finally, the third pass is that you have to now go deep in the research paper, get the points, highlight the points, understand the things very easily so that you can perform the experimentation on the similar, scientific arenas and in the similar scientific methodologies. So actually, this is the way to read a scientific paper. Usually what we do or our students do, they take the research paper, they just read it just like on the first pass, and they find it very boring, or sometimes they got distracted with the other social media and this and that thing, and they usually don't get what actually is present in the research paper. Each research paper is sometimes, it has taken almost 3 years or 4 years of research and writing and corrections and reviewing from different reviewers, and then it comes in the paper, then it comes in the journal. So if you read it just like at the first pass, you will not get it effectively. That's why I told you, if you read a paper one day, one paper, you should make the day in such a way that in the morning, 40 minutes, you read it, get a generalized idea. In the afternoon, take the second pass, grasp the content, and before you sleep, take the third pass while you will understand the paper in depth. So this way, if you read a paper, I have a doubt you cannot understand the paper fully, and you cannot grasp the paper, the things as possible as you can. So let us discuss the points. How do you effectively read a research paper? The first thing is that you should read the abstract. So every time, whenever you want to read a paper, first of all, read the abstract. Sometimes you will get the paper which is not relevant to your research arena, and you will lose the time and you will lose the interest. That's why best thing is that you need to read the abstract in order to understand the major points of the work. This thing will clarify whether you in fact know enough background to appreciate the paper. Sometimes abstract is telling you some information you don't know actually, and you need lots and lots of background information before you understand this paper. So that's why you need to understand, you need to take the abstract, because in abstract, it's a sort of a conclusion, it's a sort of a summary of the whole research paper. It will give you a vision whether this research paper is actually helping you or not. Basically, you have to understand there will be some points, there will be some techniques mentioned in the paper which you don't understand. So that's why before you read that paper, you can go through those scientific methodologies and scientific terminologies so that you will understand this paper. And also it refreshes your memory about the topic. It also helps you as a reader integrate the new information into your previous knowledge about the topic. So always, to my students, I suggest them to read the abstract before you go to the whole article, because whole article may be of 20 pages, 30 pages, and 250 words or 300 words or half a page is sufficiently telling you whether you will read this paper fully or not, or you need to understand it read or not. Then introduction can be skimmed. You need not to go details in the first pass directly. The logical flow of paper is basically straight from the introduction to the results. Discussion is very important in every paper. So basically the interpretation of a researcher, it depends upon how he has written this discussion. Now, after you know that this paper is good for you, you understand the paper very well on the basis of the abstract. What I feel is that, what I told my students is that they should now start reading the paper. If they found that introduction is good, this abstract is nicely written and it is relevant to your study, now they have now decided to read this paper, because in every day we have thousands of research papers coming up, and to get the relevant paper for your research or the idea what you want to do in the research field, you can select some papers, you can read the abstract. Once you find the abstract is okay, now you want to read the paper. Before you reading the paper, you have to grab blank piece of paper. So how do you actually read the paper? This is the procedure. Grab a blank piece of paper and take the notes. So it's not only you will just read the paper and that's it. No, every line there may be some points you need to make your notes. You can draw the figures sometimes. Some people I have seen, they like not to write the notes, in fact to make the figures something their own imagination, something their own mind figures, mind maps we call them. Similarly, there will be some points, this is for the beginners I'm telling you, there will be some points you don't understand. Although the scientific paper is written in a very, very simple English language, but still there will be some vocabulary, some points which need the vocabulary, which need to define. So you will highlight those points and you will understand those points, how these words have been introduced here in the introduction. And while you are reading this introduction, always ask the questions. Number one question, what is the hypothesis being tested? Because in research paper, every research paper, there is some hypothesis which is actually tested. So you need to understand which hypothesis is tested in this research paper. And what are the basic conclusions? These 2 points, which hypothesis has been tested and what is the basic conclusion of this paper, you will get it from the introduction. Always keep these questions in mind. So when you take these questions in your mind and you have a paper, you are making the notes, you are drawing the figures, you are defining the vocabularies, you will get maximum out of the introduction, what is expecting from you. Now from the introduction, we'll go to the material methods. I told you material method is sometimes if it is relevant to your subject, you knows it very well. Mostly material method is mentioning what types of material has been carried out, where from the material has been obtained, okay, and what methodology has been done. If you are working on the plant science, where it has been and where the plants have been grown, what the conditions have been there, which methodology has been done, what protocols have been followed, all these things are mentioned in the methodology section. So the important thing for you to read is the results. After the introduction, directly go to the results. And while you go to the result, try to understand and examine the figures as well as tables. If you understand the figure, how the figure has been written, or how the table has been created, how the figure has been created, how the illustration has been made there, understand and believe me, you have understood the whole paper. So if you understand how the figure has been made and what this figure is interpreting there, believe me, you have understood the paper. So examine the figure. Always I told you, take the notes. With each experiment figure, you should be able to explain these things. Number one, what was the basic procedure done? The question is sought to answer. What is basically the result from this table or this figure? And what is the conclusion of this table as well as figure? And you can also criticize. You can also criticize why not from this way, why it is not by this way, why it shouldn't be like in the table, why this shouldn't be in the figure. So always you can point and you can ask these questions, you can write these questions. Sometimes these questions, the answers are there, but you may have forgotten. But when you read this question, you don't understand it, you read the results again and you comprehend the figures as well as tables again. Simply after this results, there is the discussion. And I always tell this information that discussion is the actual heart of the research paper. And we consider a researcher, a real researcher, only when he knows how to discuss his results. So while you understand and while you read this discussion, you have to also take the notes as well as answer these questions. Number one, what conclusions do the authors draw? Because in the research papers, we are testing some hypotheses, we are getting some results, and from those results, we are concluding something. And this conclusion is on the basis of some previous research carried out, which we are discussing in the discussion section. So you need to ask your questions that what conclusion do the authors draw from this result, and whether this conclusion is supported by some discussion, or it has been discussed very well with the previously available research papers. Similarly, opinions and interpretation, you can describe for yourself why these data are significant, and it also you need to ask your question while reading, does it contribute to knowledge or correct errors? So if it is there, then the discussion is correct. If it is not there, then the discussion has some lacunas. Always I will tell you one story, that whenever you are reading the research paper, you need to be critical, yourself a critical reviewer. It is not necessary that whatever has been published, it is there. You need to criticize it. But naturally for the beginners, it may be not a good thing to criticize at that moment, because there are number of things which are missing. But when you get a habit of reading the research papers, after 20, 30, 100, 200 papers, your thinking capacity as a scientist, it will get evolved, and you can criticize any research paper. Even there will be a time you can criticize very high level research, and that's what the beauty of science is, that the new research is going to be carried out. So when you do all these things, I know that you will be very tired from this research paper, but don't relax yet, because you have to save energy for overall reflection and criticism of this paper. As I told you, you need to be critics of this paper. What are the reflections and criticism? So you need to, when you read the whole paper, just get an idea whether do you agree with the author's rationale for setting up the experiment as he did. See, until and unless we make the questions, we will not understand the paper very well. What is the difference between the authors, what we call them as the national authors, as well as the foreign authors, when we discuss it in the Indian context? If you see the books written by the national authors, I'm telling you the textbooks, you will read that they have written some mention, they are giving some details, and at the end they are asking the question. But if you have gone through the books which are written by the foreign authors, they are firstly asking the questions and they are starting the chapter. Because when your mind is having the question, in the quiz to get the answer, you will read the whole chapter very well. You will read it with the interest, because you have to get the answer to the particular question. This is what I feel the difference between the national authors as well as the foreign authors or international authors. So national authors, they write something first, then they ask the question at the end. But the international authors, they ask the question first and they give you the details, the chapter, mentioning that you will get the answer of these questions in this chapter. So similarly, whenever you read the paper, you have to ask the question. Number one, whatever the authors claim in the introduction, that we are giving this and this and this, whether the claim has been actually satisfied in the conclusion, or there are something missing in the experiment. Did they perform the experiments appropriately, or there are some missing things in the experiments? Were there enough experiments to support the major finding, whatever they are claiming at the end, whether this is okay or not. Similarly, do you see the trend pattern in the data, because data need to be set in a pattern manner. Similarly, do you agree with the author's conclusion? Because author will give some conclusion, whether this conclusion is following the his research methods as well as research results as well as discussion. What further questions do you have? What might you suggest that do next? These are the some critical points which will help you in understanding the research papers very well, as well as the science, and which will definitely help you in doing and conducting your research. So reading a research paper, there are a number of struggles with the paper. You know that research paper is written in a passive voice, but you have to be active while you have to read the research papers. And I always suggest you should use the highlighter, underline text. You can use the scribble comments or questions on it, make notes. This will become easier for you to comprehend and get maximum from the research papers. And at first, if you don't understand what is written in the research paper, I suggest read and reread the same research paper. Spiraling is on central points. You have to read it many times. Sometimes one time you will not get understanding of that research paper. Instead, you start next day the next research paper. I suppose in the next day, 3 days, 4 days, read the same paper as long as you will understand. So do not highlight the whole sentence or paragraph. If you highlight the whole sentence, then there will be no need of using this highlighter. Highlight as well as underline should be only those points which you find very important or very difficult, so that you will discuss with these papers with your groups as well as with your seniors. Okay, so always whenever you read the research paper or review paper, I told you, get into question asking mode. You should always be in the question asking mode. Get used to doing just like a peer review, just like a peer reviewer is doing, you do the same thing. Just because it is published, understand, it doesn't mean that it is always right. There will be a question, research paper written, published. It doesn't mean that it is published, so everything written is inside it is fine. If it is the case, then why the research paper, even after it is published in a great journals like Nature, they are being retracted? So research writing is a good, what I can say, the experience. So always when you read the research paper, read it in this manner that you are a critical reviewer. So similarly, move beyond the text of the paper. Suppose you will find something is written there, make a circle of, if you, for example, you are working under the same supervisor, 4 or 5 people, as I found Dr. Ishani's students are here. You can make a circle and you can discuss and talk about this research paper. You can read the commentaries together. You can consult dictionaries, textbooks, online links to references, figures, legends to clarify things if you don't understand. So cramming is not an answer. So you read something and you don't understand, what I feel is that it is better to be fool one time than to be fool forever. If you don't understand anything, you can discuss it, you can get the information online, or you can get it from the supervisor. But if you don't understand anything, you just pass it and take the other paper. This is not a good solution. As a scientific mind, you need to always ask the question, and if you don't understand anything, go about it and get the answer about it. And there are a number of possible informations, online links available where you can easily get the definite answer about it. And also, don't give yourself very much time. Sometimes if you if it is there is some figure or table inside it and you don't understand it after you give longer time about it, so don't be clink on one paper alone. If it is not getting in your kitty, so throw it away, take the other paper if it is easier than the previous one, and understand, so that maybe after some time when you get understanding of one paper fully, or 2-3 papers, the first paper which was difficult for you, you can again come to the paper where you can understand the terms very well. So the ground rules for today's talk is try to understand. what is written in the paper. Try to understand. Don't read only. Just try to understand, and don't be afraid to ask. Every time, this is a set rule and golden rule for all the research students. Don't be afraid to ask. Science is evolving, and science is always should be in the question asking mode. Why, how, where? And if there are some questions, you can directly ask to the authors of the paper, or you can discuss in the circle. You can discuss in the research arena. There are a number of platforms where you can discuss, and if you don't understand, you can easily consult the online resources. Simply be constructive and also be polite. Suppose sometimes you find some fault in the research paper. Always, science is very humble. You shouldn't go to write in a bad words or harsh words about the research paper. You can ask him politely, you don't understand about this point, and what is this and what is that. Also, don't be afraid to criticize constructively. Science is always evolving, and science is always about with the criticism. Positivity there in the criticism is always what has helped the science to explore and to go ahead. This is the template which I always told my students to make while they are reading a research paper, because most of the time is they read the research paper, cram the research paper, get some points, that's it. Now I told them to make this type of sheet. This is a sort of a easy access for you, because sometimes when you read maybe 100 papers, maybe you will forget what is written in the previous one. So in order to get a quick revision of the research paper relevant to your study, you can make this type of sheet with yourself, the complete citation, author, year, journal, volume, issue per page. You can make this type of, and then you can print it up for your own paper. You can click this type with the same paper at the front, so that you will easily grasp the keywords, the general subject in the paper, the specific subject in the paper, the hypothesis which was tested in the paper, the methodology which has been carried, just in points, not in the whole paper, not in the written form. Maybe you can make a diagram. What are the results in the points? What is the summary of the key points? What is the significance to the field in relation to your own work? And finally, the important figures, tables. Believe me, if you do the reading pattern in this manner, you will you will understand your comprehension, as well as you will understand how to read a research paper, and you will get many things from the research readings. I think this is the final slide, and there are some references. You can go to these references if you like to understand this process, how to read scientific articles, how to read scientific papers fully. So I suppose these webinars or these lectures, there should be in the for all the basic beginner students, as well as the scientists who are now coming to the research arena, because these will give some of the points which usually as a senior we can share with them. So with this, thank you very much. So I found some people online now, around 15 people. So anyone can ask the question relevant to the today's talk or relevant talks. So anyone, you can raise the hand and unmute yourself. Yes, Parvez Yusuf is there. Unmute and ask the question. Walaikum salam, Parvez.
Sir, actually, I would like to have this presentation. Can you share this presentation? I mean, all of these presentations with us, so that in case we have skipped any point, so we can maybe later on have a look at it. And the second thing I wanted to ask you regarding the research paper is that, for example, when you are trying to develop a figure, at the time you need some signs. Maybe, for example, if you, in case of a tumor cell, for example, you need a tumor cell, or maybe a macrophage, or maybe something like a neutrophil. So is there any kind of software or maybe some site where from we can get all these things?
Thank you, Parvez. Number one, all my talks, they are available on my YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel name is Dr. Khalid Hakim. So you can find all my talks. Sometimes I make the video talks. Sometimes I make the, I have brought some software which is representing myself in the short talks, 5 minutes, 8 minutes talk, 2-3 minutes talk on different aspects on research. So this is a sort of a research support channel which I have prepared 3 months before. So you can go, you can subscribe there, and you can find all the talks, including today's talk. Inshallah, I will upload it on my YouTube channel, Dr. Khalid Hakim on YouTube. So you can find any of the talk. This was one of the reasons I just made my YouTube channel, so that information should be there. If you miss something, or you want to suppose with the very fast, because we have a limited time, you want to take step-by-step information, everything is there. So it's available on my research YouTube channel regarding that. The other point you have mentioned about the if you have to, suppose you want to take neutrophil or some cell or some organelle, there are some softwares which are available. Some are paid, some are free, and sometimes some figures and images and illustrations are available on internet free of charge. They need not any copyright. There is no copyright issue. You can use them all. But there are some softwares. I can give you a link of some softwares to you later on, where you can draw these things by yourself. There are some softwares which are paid, and there are some freelancers also, to whom you can give your specification, and they can provide you the figure, particular illustration. Of course, they require some charge. So there are many possibilities you can use in order to get these figures. Yes, if they are free, naturally they have some limitations, but if you want to pay, then it will be a professional illustration by some expert, this scientific content writer or scientific content developer. They have these things. But yes, there are some free softwares also where you can take these, and I will share you a link later on if you come to my YouTube channel, or if you come to my if you send me an email at kur.hakim@gmail.com, or here hakim.bot@gmail.com. I can share you some of the links of those softwares where you can develop the illustrations. Yes, anyone else? You have a question regarding today's talk or any of the research support areas?
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, you can ask. Go ahead.
One more thing I wanted to know, for example, while adding the references to our paper, when the references are less in number, I see sometimes I use add references manually without using maybe EndNote or Mendeley. Is that okay, or it's not okay? It may affect the quality of the paper.
No, naturally there is no problem. Usually, I will tell you, I myself has used EndNote and these Mendeley softwares later on. But in my previous research time, 2011, 2010, or before that time we were not knowing about this EndNote and other softwares. We were doing it manually. What is the benefit of using this EndNote or Mendeley? The benefit is that, suppose, firstly, it is saving your time. Second, suppose your paper is getting rejected by any means. So in order to send it to the other journal, you need to manually change everything. Okay, but if you have taken it from EndNote or Mendeley, in one click you can directly change it to the same style, other style, just in one click. So that is the most important thing and the beautiful thing with using this EndNote for making this reference. Otherwise, you can make it manual. There is absolutely no issue in making the referencing manually if you have a time. Otherwise, it's a time-consuming process. That's the most problem with using these references manually. Otherwise, there is no issue in quoting and in putting and in setting all the things manually. No problem at all. Yes, I found there are some students from Dr. Ishani, and this is appreciable that we have many students there, and they are from the starting careers. If they want to ask any question, they can. And the other point is that my talk, I always invite a few people, maybe 15 to 20. The maximum is, the reason for that is I just want to make it interactive, not one-way traffic, so that most of the persons, they will get an choice to ask the question. Okay. Third point is that the language is not a bar. You can ask me the question in my own Kashmiri tongue, Kashmiri language. You can ask me in Urdu, Hindi, Arabic, or English. So no worries if somebody wants to speak in Urdu or Hindi, it's no problem with me. This is a sort of a research support for beginners, for basic beginners, because I know that some seniors, they know the procedure very well, but for beginners, they may have some question, they may have some issue or query. Particularly today's topic, it was very much set for the beginners, because I usually get these questions. You told us that how to write the paper, but how to read the paper, this is also some of the things which we need to understand. So today I was in this mode to let you know how to read it effectively, more effectively. So if suppose somebody has the question, you can raise your hand and ask the question. So in case you don't have any questions, so I thank you very much for today's presence. We may have another topic for the next week. Almost every Saturday, I am having a talk of half an hour, and then we have the question and answer. Sometimes you can also give me your points, what you want to learn. So it's not necessary I shall always start the talks from my side. You can give me the title, you want to learn about this and that thing. So I think that will be better for the next classes or next classes. So can we introduce the color coding using in the paper and graphics there? Yes, you can. Miss Bilkis, you can. Yes, you can. You can easily do it. Sana Fatima, yes, sister. Thank you very much for your presence and others, and thank you all. Stay blessed. See you next week, inshallah, with some other interesting talk. Fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.